For the moment, we don't have a lot of information. There was an explosion that occurred near a vehicle that was in Bani Hayyan, and peacekeepers were injured. We're working to confirm the details of exactly what happened and the nature of the injuries. And so this is an ongoing process. So unfortunately, I don't have details to share with you now. As soon as I do, I can let you know. But this is something that, again, we remind all of the actors who are involved in this conflict here in South Lebanon that they have an obligation to ensure the safety and security of peacekeepers. And that obligation includes avoiding activities, including their combat activities, that might put peacekeepers at risk. Last night, one of our positions was hit by a projectile that exploded and caused very serious injuries to 2 peacekeepers who were nearby. One of the peacekeepers, unfortunately, succumbed to his injuries last night. The other was airlifted to a hospital in Beirut, where he underwent surgery and is stable, but very seriously injured. But we're hopeful that he will recover. We express our sincerest condolences to the family, friends, colleagues of the fallen peacekeeper, and wish a swift and speedy recovery for the peacekeeper who was injured. Obviously, this is a serious concern for us, and we continue to urge all the actors who are on the ground here in South Lebanon to avoid any actions that put peacekeepers at risk. They have an obligation to ensure the safety and security of peacekeepers, and any action that they do that puts peacekeepers at risk, including combat activities near their positions, is a violation of Resolution 1701, and it must stop. UNIFIL is an impartial mission. We have peacekeepers from almost 50 different countries representing a variety of political viewpoints. We are impartial. We don't have skin in the game here. We're here to report what is happening. In this case, this is a very serious incident. A peacekeeper is dead. Another peacekeeper is injured. We have to be very careful and very sure about what we say and establishing the facts. So this is why we have an investigation where a number of technical experts will look at the facts, will look at the circumstances of the incident, we'll look at the evidence on the ground, we'll take information from the parties in case they have something to contribute, and this will result in an investigative conclusion that is solid. Of course, everything that we do here is built on trust that we have between the parties. And for something as sensitive as this, we want to make sure that we get it right before we accuse anyone of doing something to harm our peacekeepers, because harm to peacekeepers is a very serious violation of Resolution 1701 and of international law. So if we're going to hold someone responsible for it, we want to make sure that we are on very solid ground to do so, because we need to maintain that trust. We work with the Lebanese army, we work with the Israeli army, the Israeli government, the Lebanese government. We want to make sure that everything that we do is backed up by facts and is credible, because we need to maintain those relationships in order to advance the goals of Resolution 1701, in order to be able to communicate between those two parties and have credibility. Indonesia has made an immense contribution to peacekeeping and to UNIFIL in particular. They are working and living in very difficult conditions right now, given the conflict situation, and they are performing admirably. It is a tragedy what happened yesterday. It is a tragedy for any peacekeeper to lose their life, and for any peacekeeper to be injured. And our thoughts are with their families and with the Indonesian people at this very difficult time. Peacekeepers continue to remain committed to their task and to Resolution 1701, and the Indonesian contingent is right there, working very hard and committed to restoring security and stability here in South Lebanon, doing what they can to bring that about, supporting communities in whatever way they can. And they're making a great contribution, and we thank them for, in this case, the sacrifice that has been made, and what we as UNIFIL peacekeepers will continue to do in terms of the work that we're doing in South Lebanon will be in honor of the memory of this fallen peacekeeper and the work that he contributed to here. I don't think we can say with any certainty at this point what was deliberate or not. And I think it's a misconception to say that just because there is extremely high technology, that means that the tactics of war play out perfectly. We've seen that this is not the case. Greater technology does not mean greater accuracy, does not necessarily mean anything. There are still misunderstandings, there is still human error that is part of the process. And so this is something that the investigation, for example, will look at to determine whether there was a miscalculation, a misunderstanding, a malfunction. These are all things that even with the best technology can happen, and these are all things that we will consider as part of the investigation. Peacekeepers are here in South Lebanon, and we unfortunately have been, we're placed in the middle of this battleground between Hezbollah and Israel. And unfortunately, we know that it is possible for mistakes to be made. We don't know whether mistakes were made in these circumstances. This is part of the investigation. But of course, that is a possibility. We're not always going to jump to the conclusion that something is deliberate because we simply don't know. And we need to maintain our credibility by ensuring that anything that we say is based on facts and based on a solid investigation. In any conflict, it's the civilians who suffer the most. And in this case, also, a peacekeeper has now lost his life. Others have been injured. If this conflict were not happening, many things would be very different. This is a theoretical situation that I wish were the case. I wish that we were not here in this situation where 500,000 people have been displaced from the south, have had their lives uprooted. They don't know if they're going to come back. Hundreds, even 1,000 people have been killed. Many more people injured. This is a terrible tragedy. People on both sides of the blue line are suffering because of this conflict. If this conflict were not happening, many people's lives would be much improved. This is why peacekeepers continue to remain present here. We continue to do what we can, even despite the very difficult circumstances, even despite the risks that are presented to us in doing this work, because we believe that it is very important that we do what we can to work toward restoring that security and stability that we once had, and so that people who live on both sides of the blue line can return to some kind of normalcy in their lives.
Jelajahi cara baru mendapatkan informasi. Download Metro TV Extend sekarang.